You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It's Wednesday, January 29th. It is also the end of the second day of Senior Bowl out here in Mobile, Alabama. And day two was a fun one, man. Exhausting day, long day. All of these days are long. But today we got a chance to interview players in a scrum style setup, and that was the media day today. So it was a great opportunity to interview players and just talk to them one-on-one. No other distractions. So it was great. I got a chance to talk to a number of guys that I've grown to be a fan of through the first 2 weeks of practice, and that have stood out to me. And of course, guys who have connections to 49ers. I try to get some of the guys who have been on the national edge team, as they've been coached by KJ Wright this week, of course. Jalen Noel, Iowa State wide receiver. He had one season that overlapped with Brock Purdy's, Noel's rookie season. So I did ask him about that. And it's great to, get to know some of these guys and talk to them one-on-one and see them, outside of the field environment as well. So that was awesome today. But before I get into the interviews, and, if you're a subscriber to the channel, you're probably already seen that I am posting some of those interviews on my channel, and there are a few more to come that I'll be posting. So make sure you guys check that out after this. But yeah, as far as who stood out on day two of Senior Bowl practice, I would say, so for one, yesterday, you guys know that I paid attention to the trenches the most, offensive line, defensive line. And on day two, I kind of really set out to pay attention more so to corners and linebackers a bit more. Kind of halfway through it, I found myself paying attention to the defensive line and offensive line again, but mostly because in the first practice, it was the national team, and I did see John Lynch checking out the defensive line and offensive line one-on-ones. Mind you, these one-on-ones happen at the same time as linebacker and running back one-on-ones, and the same time as the corner wide receiver one-on-ones. He did not care about those. He wanted to be front and center for the second day in a row, looking at the offensive line, defensive line, national team. And so I think that speaks volumes. It is January 29th, and if I had to guess right now, I would tell you that I think the 49ers are going defensive player at pick 11. I think they would go a defensive lineman at pick 11. That's just the feel that I'm getting based on what I'm seeing them most interested in through these first 2 weeks of Senior Bowl practice. Again, a lot can change, but I don't know. I see John Lynch way more locked in at the Senior Bowl this year than he was last year. Of course, the 49ers were, on the doorstep of, the Super Bowl, last year's Senior Bowl. They also, of course, were going to have one of pick 31 and 32, right? So there wasn't as much investment into the Senior Bowl as I've seen from, John Lynch and some of the other top scouting guys this year. So again, it just appears to me that there's an emphasis on looking at defensive players, and in particular, defensive line. So again, I wanted to be wherever John Lynch was at, whatever one-on-one session he was looking at, I was wanting to look at, because I wanted to see the same thing as him, just to, get a better feel for what the 49ers might be thinking. So, yeah, national team, I did check out the offensive line, defensive line one-on-ones, like I said. I think in this practice, definitely is more the same guys have stood out. Like I think I've seen a lot of consistency from the good players, and that it seems like in these two practices they've stacked their days. Like it hasn't just been one day and the next day, oh, like, he fell off. He's not the same. No, these guys have been pretty dominant, I would say. So the same guys that continue to stand out to me. Again, first I'm going with the national team here. Um, I would say Tez Johnson through these first two practices has been great. I know there's the concerns about his size. I think he's 5'9" and he's like 156 pounds or something like that. Tiny, tiny, tiny. I think I've seen some of the comparisons be like Tank Dell, and I can see that because, like, yeah, from the size profile, definitely one of the smaller dudes. But he's not just a fast dude. He can get open. Like he's been getting open through these first 2 weeks, 2 days of practice, just very naturally. And the one word that's used to describe him is twitchy. That's something that he has shown in these two practices, and that's something that gets him open against some decent corners in the Senior Bowl, right? So that's something that has stood out to me with the national team. Tez Johnson continuing to stack his days. Elijah Arroyo, like I said about him yesterday, his size and his ability to move at his size has been really impressive. Um, so in the context of the 49ers, right? I think what the 49ers look for in tight ends is blocking tight end first, and if you can catch, great. If you can do like if you can catch well, then you're George Kittle, right? Like and they don't need another George Kittle right now. I think what they're looking for in tight ends, knowing that they have Kittle, eh, what you're looking for in a T2 or a T3 is someone who can block. I mean, think Charlie Warner, right? And I think, again, like if you could get someone who could block like Charlie Warner, but can also actually catch, I think that would be the ideal person for the 49ers and what they're looking for. Elijah Arroyo, I don't think is what the 49ers would be looking for. Again, he's intriguing. Definitely an interesting prospect, size profile, going to grab your attention. But I just don't think he's someone the 49ers would go for, because he's more of a pass catching tight end than he is a blocking tight end. And again, I think the 49ers, especially with a T2, will look to prioritize a blocking tight end who can maybe possibly also catch over someone who's a pass catcher first. So I think again, Royal's nice. He's been sacking his days. I also think Terrace Ferguson is another one out of Oregon. He's a tight end that continues to grab my attention here and there. Not a guy I'm like really looking for or anything like that, but just a guy that you're watching and it's like, oh, who's that guy? Oh, it's Terrace Ferguson. Oh, again, right? Like, so he's a guy that I've seen make plays. He's been consistent through these first couple of days, and I think today like really especially solidified it for me, because I'm like, okay, all right, second day in a row now. Like you're catching my attention. I'm not even trying to notice you, but here you are again. So definitely becoming a fan of Terrence Ferguson. And on the American team, I do actually like a few of the tight ends on the American team, which I'll get to here in a bit. But I'm still talking about the national team here. I think on day two, couple of other guys that have stood out and continue to stand out. Josh Connerly, also from Oregon. He's been great. You guys might have seen the clip that I posted about him getting ran the F over by Mike Green, the edge out of Marshall, right? Hey, that's no knock at all on Josh Connerly, all right? Like, two really good players at their respective positions. There's going to be wins and there's going to be losses for each of those guys, right? Um, Green obviously got the better of Connerly on that rep, right? But Connerly's been great in these first two days of practice. And, again, another player that has stacked his days in these two practices. Marcus Embo is another guy. He's Purdue, more of an interior offensive lineman, but someone who I saw a couple times today make good plays. I didn't really pay attention to him yesterday, but I do know from other people who were there mentioned, Embo was someone who played well in day one as well. So someone else who's stacking their days. Ariante Ursary, someone else who has been pretty dominant through the first 2 days of practice as well. He's out of Minnesota, tackle. So yeah, I mean, the national offensive line is a really strong one, as is their defensive line. So it's been really awesome to watch them go head to head in team periods and one-on-ones. Another guy on the national team offensive line that has been pretty dominant, Wyatt Millum. Hey, he's been solid. He's been solid through these first two. Gray Zabel, I think, has been, I don't want to say surprise. I think a lot of people knew that he would be good, but he's from NDSU, right? North Dakota State, smaller school. It's the typical questions you're going to get about, guys who have lower level of competition in their college tape. Like, can you do this against NFL tier competition consistently, right? Because that's what you're going into. So I think these 2 days of practice have shown and have confirmed that Gray Zabel is without a doubt like someone who would fit in the NFL environment, someone who is definitely going to have success as an interior offensive lineman in the NFL. Now, again, not sure what round he goes in really, but definitely, like I said, someone who maybe could be an option for the 49ers. I would say that, like, with his performance this week, his draft stock is rising, right? And let's not get too ahead of ourselves, because it's like scouts have been new, right? Like they've seen the tape, but again, like that last piece of confirmation that I think a lot of people needed was, what is he going to look like against this level of competition? He's checked that box. So I think now teams can say, all right, well, I feel good about Gray Zabel now. I'm willing to draft him here. And again, I don't know what that here is, what that range is. Maybe day two, early day two for Gray Zabel. So possibly like third round, maybe fourth round. I don't know. I truly don't know. So but I do know that he's doing himself a lot of favors out here. A lot of favors. He's been dominant. I feel comfortable using that word about Gray Zabel through these weeks of practice. Or I don't know why I keep saying weeks. It's felt like weeks. 2 days of practice. So again, I tried to, pay attention to corners a little bit more, and also with me getting the chance to talk to a couple of players today, I get intel on each other. One common question I was asking them was, who from an iron sharpens iron standpoint is challenging you, in these practices. So I asked Jalen Noel, like I said, the Iowa State wide receiver. He mentioned Azariah Thomas out of Florida, out of Florida State, the corner, press corner, really physical guy. And he also mentioned Quincy Riley from Louisville. I saw Bilal Cohn make a couple plays today, Western Michigan corner. Dorian Strong has also been another one. He's out of Virginia Tech that has been good through the first 2 days. So there's some talent in the defensive backfield out here as well. I don't know why my throat's all dry. Talking too much. Let me check these comments really quick because I just been yapping for the first 15 minutes. Nick says, Mike Green and Walter Nolan, welcome to number 11 discussion. Absolutely. Although I don't know about Mike Green. Like, it's hard to say, like, where he's going to go. I think, based on these 2 days of practice, Mike Green has shown that the arm length concerns should not be concerns. But then again, like, teams, scouting departments have thresholds. And if you don't meet certain measurables, you will be off the board, no ifs, ands, or buts, whether it's right or wrong, right? So I don't know if or at the very least they may not be off the board, but it would knock them back as far as weighing the risk and value. So I don't know if Mike Green ends up going in the first round. I do think he's helped his case, like I said, here at the Senior Bowl so far. And so we'll see. I just don't know if he would be the pick at 11. But yeah, I mean, fans will make it a discussion. Absolutely. And Walter Nolan, in my eyes, absolutely should be in that discussion. Nolan did leave practice early today. I tweeted about it. I wasn't sure if it was injury related or what, but I can say that he did not return. There was another player that left. I think it was Princely. He did return. Walter Nolan did not, although he did attend the media day session, where we got to interview them. I didn't see him, so I didn't get a chance to interview him, but he was there, so maybe, that's a positive sign. But yeah, didn't see too much of Walter Nolan in today's practice. Rain says, you're single-handedly providing me entertainment, itching my need for draft info. It's draft season, baby. It is draft season. I was just talking to Wayne about this. It's also out here, right? And I was like, man, I feel so much better. This is my third year doing the Senior Bowl. I feel so much better in this year's Senior Bowl, so much more comfortable, so much more, like, prepared. And I think it's because, like, the 49ers aren't in the playoffs. Like, our draft season started early, right? So I got a chance to dive into these players earlier than I normally would have, way earlier than I did last year, because I didn't know anything about anyone going into last year's Senior Bowl. And I think I hated that. I hated that feeling. And so I think along with the fact that I had the opportunity to dive into these guys earlier, I also kind of emphasized it with myself. Like, no, you got to be more prepared and do your homework on these guys. And so I did. And still, I feel like there's a lot to know that I still need to know and still need to watch on some of these guys. But, definitely, like I said, feel more comfortable with where I'm at with this Senior Bowl prospects so far. I appreciate you guys. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet. Like I said, I'm doing this live. It's going to be a little quick one just to kind of recap day 2 and what's going on with the Niners. And then also I will continue to upload these videos that I'm talking about, the interviews that I had with players today. So I have, let's see, 8. I had 8 interviews with players today. So I'll be posting those videos in the next couple of hours. Throwback. Who were you talking about here? He says he reminds me of another Juwan Jennings, the way he blocks. Dude's a dog. Are you talking about Jalen Noel? Possibly. So Jalen Noel, I'll talk about him a little bit right now. Zabel? You're talking about Zabel. Juwan, you know what? Juwan Jennings does block like an offensive lineman, so that makes sense. Yeah, Zabel's he's been so stout. He's been a wall this week. So very impressive. All right, I guess so. Matt Miller has said Mike Green, Shamar Stewart, Trey Amos expected to withdraw from the Senior Bowl per Matt Miller. And then also Thor on Twitter, if you guys follow him, mentioned that he saw Thor Nystrom mentioned that he saw Stewart leaving media day with suitcases. So I think that tells you enough. Some of these guys, like I said, have been so dominant that they came, they saw, they conquered. Peace out. Hey, they deserve it. they did what they needed to do. So yeah, that's good for those players. I would definitely agree. I think those guys have done enough to boost their draft stock or to do whatever it is that they intended to do when they accepted that Senior Bowl invite. They've done it. So, and I'm actually kind of excited because I think we'll see more reps for other guys as well. So like Shamar Stewart, Mike Green. Well, Mike Green is on the national team. So again, that'll mean more reps for someone else on that side. And then Shamar Stewart is on the American team. So that'll mean more, reps for some of those guys. And let's see. Am I done with the national team? Hold on, let me go through my notes here. No, I was just gonna mention, I want to watch a little bit more of the safeties. Haven't done so enough. I've heard Sebastian Castro's good, but I don't know if they've done. I don't know. I need to watch them a little bit more. I'll try to do that tomorrow. Last practice is tomorrow. I did see more of the linebackers today. I thought Jeffrey Bassa from Oregon looked nice. Nick Martin had a couple of nice plays, especially in one-on-one. These running backs are tough. Some of these running backs, in one-on-ones, they're cooking. They get open. So I think obviously we know there's a lot of talent at running back in this year's draft, but I think some of these guys, there's a lot of guys who have the ability to pass catch as well. I don't know if that's just the thing now, and I think with this new era, I guess, I don't know if you call it a new era, but in modern NFL last few years, I feel like that's been a heavily coveted thing for running backs to have that ability. Not solely that ability, but if you have that, it's definitely a plus. So I feel like there is, in the last few years, there's been a bit of an influx of guys who could do both. And I think this is a great running back class for guys who could just do both, but it's not the only thing they could do. They're still really good running backs as well. So, yeah, I think that's exciting. But anyway, I was like, wait, how did I get to the running backs? The linebackers. So yeah, some of these linebackers do got in the one-on-ones against running backs, but there have been some good reps as well. I saw a good breakup from Nick Martin today. So yeah, I want to pay more attention to those guys tomorrow. It's just that John Lynch was locked in on the defensive line. So that's what I paid attention to again. But you know what? Because of that, some of the guys that stood out to me, Aeneas Peebles out of Virginia Tech, he's a short guy. He's small. And he was getting snaps at edge in these practices. He's an interior defensive lineman, but getting those snaps at edge, and he's been in the backfield quite a bit. So he's someone who's been a handful. Donovan Ezaraku, Boston College. So I spoke with who was it? I spoke with Marcus Mbow. Oh yeah, I already said this, right? Or I don't know if I said this. Marcus Mbow. I don't know. I was just talking to Wayne about this. I don't know if it's Mbow or Mbow. I'm gonna say Mbow. Marcus Mbow from Purdue, offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman. Yeah, he mentioned Donovan Ezaraku, Mike Green, and who's the other guy he mentioned? He mentioned David Walker as 3 guys who have challenged him. So I think I said that already. But I tweeted it out too, so I think I could be misremembering. But anyway, so he mentioned those 3 guys. And no surprise, those guys have been dominant. You said Mike Green done what he's needed to do. That video alone, him like knocking Josh Connerly off his ass is probably enough to that was probably like, all right, I'm done after today. And David Walker, yes, has been nice. He's smaller too. Like he's got that. I don't know. I don't know how tall he is, but he just looks somewhat smaller. He's got a different kind of build, I'll just say, for an edge rusher. But he's someone who's consistently got himself in the backfield as well. So he's a disruptor. One of the other national defensive linemen or edge guys that I got to interview was Olu Oladejo out of UCLA. Talked to him for a minute. Like he was cool. Exudes confidence, which I love. So much confidence out of that kid. Because I asked him, "Who's challenging you out here?" And he's like, really, no one, really. So there's that. So that's why it's cool to interview these guys and ask them like more or less the same questions, because then like you really see the personalities pop out just based on how they answer and their character. So yeah, he was a good one. I'll be posting that one on YouTube shortly after this. Some of the other ones have uploaded, a little before I went live here, so check those out. Rick Diaz asks, "Are we going to get a new kicker for the season? Yes or no?" I think yes. I don't think it'll be via a draft pick. I I'd have no words if they gave up another draft pick for a kicker. What I do think will happen is you bring in an undrafted free agent and or a free agent in who has experience and bring them in for a competition with Jake Moody. See who wins. And we know Brent Boyer, 49ers' new special teams coordinator, he doesn't have any alliance or loyalty to Jake Moody. He didn't make the pick. He wasn't part of this org when that pick was made. So he could probably care less. That's not to say that he's just going to kick him to the curb. I think the 49ers would probably just like him to do some due diligence on him on a fresh slate of 2025. And, dude, I mean, you drafted him in the 3rd round. I think you owe him at least that. At least that. And again, he might still fail. But if he fails, then you know what you have in Jake Moody. And you know you got to part ways with him. And maybe they already know. I would. And, you could either move on with one of the 2 guys that I think they will bring in as competition for Jake. But that's what I think is going to happen. And then, yeah, like Rick, you're mentioning the center from Atlanta Falcons, Drew Dahlman, who I think makes a whole lot of sense for the 49ers to target in free agency. The 49ers, not that they don't draft centers, but I think centers are better. Well, I think the 49ers believe that that centers are better experienced than developed. They don't want to have to develop them. They want them already with the experience, because the centers in Kyle Shanahan's offense get a lot of responsibility. You're not going to hand that type of responsibility to a rookie. I mean, he can have all the same types of responsibilities in college and still not know what the hell he's getting into in the NFL. It's just, I think there's so much complexity to it. Setting the protections and all that alone, I think would send some guys into a swirl. So I think the 49ers prefer to have an experienced free agent center, and I think there'll be some opportunities. There's the one from Falcons, who I think would be a great fit. There's also another, forget his name, from the Colts. I think his name's Ryan something. But yeah, I think that'd be a no-brainer. Hopefully they do address the center position in free agency, and we see Dahlman be that guy. That's one position I think you have to be willing to spend for, especially if you're not willing to give that role to a rookie or a guy you've developed for a couple years out of the gate. I think it has to go to, you have to be willing to then invest in that position if you're going to have so many limitations, I guess, for lack of a better word, for what you are looking for, what you need, like requirements, a better word. TB says, Steph, we need another safety and a slot corner. Absolutely. I think they either go a slot corner or an outside corner. I don't think they mind keeping Lenore as their slot corner just because he's so good at it. But I think it's easier also to find an outside corner. So I think it's more likely that they draft an outside corner. And there's some good ones. There's some good ones in this draft. And yeah, I do think they address safety. But I do think it's more likely that they bring in a veteran safety to potentially start alongside Mustafa. You also are going to let Jair Brown compete to see if he can get back to his 2023 version in 25, and I could see them drafting a safety as well, but if they do, I could see it being later in the draft. So that's just a guess right now. Oh yeah, Nathan likes Jalen Noel. Yeah, and so little tidbit on Noel, and he was talking about this in interviews. He was like, yeah, I think a lot of teams see me as just a slot guy, but I'm out here to prove that I can play inside and outside. And he mentions that at the Senior Bowl, he's pretty much been lining up exclusively on the outside, and he's been looking nice. He's been solid, and he's made some nice catches. So yeah, I think he's proven to teams that he'll have the versatility to do both. I think his size will lend himself better to being a slot guy, so I think teams will just be tempted to keep him there. But it's always nice to know that a guy has the ability to win outside as well. Think Ricky Pearsall-ish, yes, he's probably suited better for the slot, but he could be outside. So same with Jawan Jennings or something like that. Yeah, I think so. As far as running backs, I do think the 49ers will not be able to help themselves, and I think they will draft a running back, or with how deep this running back class is, I think they could probably end up getting good value for someone that they actually like as an undrafted free agent. I could see that as well. Law of Oz says your vids have been circulating everywhere. Good job. Yeah, I saw the Mike Green video get picked up by the 33rd team in their social media. And then I had a couple videos of Jackson Haas, who, from Georgia Tech. So Georgia Tech reposted those as well. RJ Oben, who I'll talk about more in a bit as well. His dad saw my videos, and he was there at the media. Oh my god, I'm getting tired. I was like, what is it called? Media. I don't know, the media session today, media day, and yeah, he introduced himself. He was like, "Yeah, I saw your video, and yeah." I just followed you, so I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Oben, nice. Again, talk about him here in a bit. Oh my god, it's been a long, long day. All right, David Walker. Yeah, David Walker. So like that's the Central Arkansas guy, edge. That's like I said, one of the guys that Embo said has been challenging him. I just talked about it, right? Maybe you weren't on yet, but yeah, he's been someone that's been consistent and getting in the backfield and all that. I like him, definitely like him. Rain says, Steph, is there anyone you think is having more of a rough time at the Senior Bowl than others? A rough time? Mm, okay, I'll say this. I don't know if they're having a rough time, but there's been a couple times. There's been some guys that I was expecting to notice because there was some hype around them going into it, and I haven't noticed. Like, what's his name? The tight end from Bowling Green, Harold Fannin. You know how I said that there's some positions that going into it, like I said, I'm gonna pay attention to offensive line, defensive line, and I just know there's gonna be guys from other positions who I'm going to notice anyway because they make a play or something like that, or they make a couple plays and you just can't ignore them. Harold Fanning has been the opposite of that. It's like I know he's here, but I haven't seen him do anything. Like, and again, I haven't been paying attention, so maybe that doesn't paint the full picture. But I guess I was just expecting more, especially for a guy who name I heard of quite a bit, you know. So that's been a little disappointing. But as far as like just someone being so bad that, people are like I hear people around me talking about it too, because that does happen. Like every year there's always someone that's like, oh my god, do you see how bad this guy looks? you know. Um I the quarterbacks I would say have not been the sharpest, but that's to be expected in the first couple days of practice. These quarterbacks are throwing to receivers they've never thrown to before, behind a line they've never played behind, and like there's weird snaps on day one. There's just misconnections, so it takes time, and that's why like usually it it surprises me sometimes how more cleaned up it looks like on game day. Like Saturday, we're going to see some nice plays. I'm sure we'll still see some like misconnections, of course, but it's going to be way more dialed in on Saturday when the game is played. So I don't put too much stock in like the quarterbacks not looking the sharpest on the first couple of days of practice because I think it's tough, man. It takes some time. So, and also I don't really care about quarterbacks because 49ers about to pay Brock Purdy. So they don't need a quarterback. I think yeah, they can get one late in the draft, I think they will, but I don't have to pay attention to them, which is a great feeling. And yes, 3 players expected to go home after strong showings at the first 2 days of Senior Bowl. Trey Amos, corner; Mike Green, edge; Shamar Stewart, edge. All those guys have been great and consistent through the first 2 days. There's honestly a couple of other guys who could probably also just be like, I'm done. But like these guys in particular probably have been told by teams, you are not going past pick 20. Like as an example, like you're getting picked in the first round. So then again, people could the they don't need to risk their bodies any further, and they have that they know that they're gonna get picked high and their job there is done. Princely and Fannin. Wayne was talking about Princely. I think Wayne said Princely is like today, he mentioned him a couple times, and I think he might have gotten to interview him. So I don't know if Princely's been a disappointment. But Fannin, I would say, has been. All right, let me talk about the. God, I'm yapping for 40 minutes. Let me talk about the American team really quick. So Jackson Dart, I thought, had a good day today. He looked sharp again. I don't really care about the quarterbacks, but he looks pretty good today. TCU wide receiver Jack Beck. So again, yesterday did not pay attention to wide receivers. There was a nice play he made yesterday that I was like, oh, like, mental note, but again, wasn't really paying attention. And then I also heard a lot of people mention Jalen Royals. Again, people mentioned Jalen Royals on day 2. Jack Beck, I saw another player too from him today that were really nice in one-on-one. And then there's another one in team period. I might have gotten a video of it. And if I do, I'll try to post it. But he's nice. I think he has a knack for getting open. He's what's a good word? Like tenacious, I guess. Been hearing that word a lot, just in different about different players, and so I feel like that one works for Jack Beck. He's been nice. Okay, so let me talk about the American team tight ends because there's a few that I like. Jake Briningstool out of Clemson. Excuse me, sorry. I definitely noticed him a little bit more today. He made some nice catches. I think he blocks pretty well too. Didn't really pay attention to him in that regard as far as his blocking goes. Just saw him make some catches, and I was like, oh, like he looks nice. So I'll try to watch a little bit more of him. But I think people have said he can block. Now, CJ Dupree, I think, out of Alabama, triggering, right? Alabama tight end. This one's not Cam Latu, though. I don't know much about him, and I hadn't watched him before the Senior Bowl, but Wayne said he spoke to him today at the media day, and he said that he loved the interview. Like, he was just, I guess, a great character guy. And yeah, sometimes that happens. Sometimes you talk to the guy and you're like, man, I'm a fan of you just off of your personality. So I think he had an interview that he filmed. He'll post that. And I'm curious too, because I didn't see it. So I want to see what he said. I think he said that he spoke with the Niners too, Dupree. But I can't confirm that yet, because I'll wait for Wayne to see what he said. Okay, and then let's see. So the other American team tight ends that have stood out to me, Mason Taylor and Jackson Haas. You've seen me tweet maybe possibly about Jackson Haas before, because there was like this compilation of him blocking. And I was like, oh, he's such a Niner. Like, dude can block. And I've seen other people compare him to Charlie Warner. I got to talk with Jackson Hayes today, and I already planned to talk to him before today's practice, and he just happened, like, I was locked in on him, and he just had a great practice. And if you follow me on Twitter, I posted a couple of his clips in team period today where he had some really impressive blocks, and in one of them he lined up as the fullback in an I formation. And so, like, true blocking tight end, versatility. And yeah, he's been compared to Charlie Warner. I asked him about that, and I spoke to him for like 5 minutes at the media day today. That one has been posted on my YouTube, so please check that out, give it a like, whatnot. Definitely just feels like someone the 49ers would like. I didn't specifically ask him if he met with the 49ers, but I did ask him if there were any meetings with teams that have stood out. He mentioned the Ravens because he's a big Ravens fan, and then also he mentioned the Texans. But I'm like, dude, if the Texans love him, then I mean the 49ers gotta love him too, right? So I don't know. Again, didn't specifically ask him if he met with the 49ers, but I asked him about Kittle, how he'd feel to learn under his wing, and he was a great interview. Like I enjoyed talking to him, and he seems like a good kid. So check out that interview if you have not yet after this. So the other guy's Mason Taylor. Wayne said he interviewed Mason Taylor, and Wayne was like, yeah. Oh, we've both been impressed by Mason Taylor this week, by the way. As far as like pass catcher, he's made some nice grabs. So Wayne asked him about blocking, and then I guess Mason said, "Yeah, like I'll do it." Well, he probably didn't say it in that tone, but he was like, "Yeah, I'll do it if a team asks me to." And so Wayne's like, "Nah," like it didn't seem like he truly loved blocking. I think he sees himself probably as more of a pass catching tight end. And that's fine. Like I said, there's a role for that in the NFL. I just don't think that's the role the 49ers are looking for right now. So I like Mason Taylor as a prospect, but maybe not so much as a fit for the 49ers. I'll just say that. But he's been fun. He's been fun to watch. And then, tomorrow I want to pay attention to Brian Stool's blocking a little bit more, just to kind of get a sense of where he's at with that, because I like him, and I like his pass catching ability. Now Jackson Haas, I've seen the blocking. I want to see a little more pass catching from him. He had a nice one-handed grab today. I actually did ask him, or he did mention that, because I think I asked him what his favorite rep of the day was, and he mentioned that one. He talked about that a little bit, and so yeah. So different things I'm looking for in different guys. As far as the American team offensive line, you got Emory Jones, who at LSU, who's been pretty good. Willie Lampkin, North Carolina offensive lineman, short guy. Like I think he's smaller than Jason Poe. You remember when the 49ers, like all the hype around Jason Poe, like he was like this small school guy, and he was like small. Not just a small school guy, but small in stature. You remember how small Jason Poe looked on our offensive line? I think even smaller than that. That's Willie Lampkin. But like he's been impressive this week. Like he's been holding his own. And that's with some really tough interior defensive linemen that are on the American team. There's Deion Walker, there's Walter Nolan, there's TJ Sanders, Cameron Jackson. Like they're stacked on the interior on the American team. And Willie Lampkin has been, man, I mean, he's stout. He's stout. Low man wins, I guess. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes, because again, I think it goes back to the same measurables conversation that I mentioned. Similar to Mike Green. I wouldn't say Willie Lampkin is as dominant as Mike Green, so definitely wouldn't be talking about him as day one, maybe even day two guy. But I think there's some team's going to take a flyer on him, because why not? And because of how he has looked this week, I think it will alleviate some concerns. It's not. I think it'll still be in the back of the mind of some teams of, oh God, like there's never been someone this small in the NFL at guard or center. And I think it might scare some teams away. So I think he'll probably end up, being picked later. But he's been nice. He's been answering questions here, like questions that people had about him as far as his size. I think he's helping answer those. Jackson Slater out of Sac State. I really want to get Jackson Slater on the pod for a prospect interview. I did get a chance to talk to him today, because I was like, hey, I DM'd you. He remembered me. Then I asked him a couple questions, and I hope I didn't bomb him, because I got a little nervous. I get nervous sometimes when I ask players questions. But anyway, now I'm just rambling. Jackson Slater has been awesome in these first 2 days of practice. Again, so questions for Slater coming out of Sac State, like small school guy. Always the questions are, how is he going to fare against NFL level competition? Slater has looked the part, right? So I think he's He's going to be a guard, in the NFL, and he's going to be a solid one, like career backup with the ability, I think, to start, be a swing guard potentially. So that's great. That's great for him, and he's him being at the Senior Bowl is a great opportunity for him to get in front of teams against better competition than what he faced at Sacramento State, and just kind of show what he has. And, Brad loves Jackson Slater as well, so that's all you need to know. Who did I? There was a defensive lineman I asked about who he was going up against. Who the hell did I talk to? I forgot who I spoke with, but they mentioned Jonah Savalinea out of Arizona as someone who was challenging them this week. And I'm like, I can't remember who the hell it was. So I'm like, who else did I talk to from the American team? I'm having a brain fart. Oh, it was RJ Oben. It was RJ Oben. I asked him, and he said Jonah. So, yeah. Just and yeah, I haven't been paying attention to Jonah as much, but like I've seen other people say that he's been having a good Senior Bowl. So, as well as Clay Webb, someone I haven't personally really noticed, but I've seen other people mention. He's been good on the one-on-ones. Armand Membao, I think, is another guy who's been nice. So, okay. So on the American cornerbacks, Trey Amos, we know, is out. He's had a good time. He's out. He's done. Jacob Parrish, I saw, has met with the 49ers at the Senior Bowl. For what it's worth, I do think the 49ers going to be looking at corners. In fact, I got a scoop from someone who is at the Senior Bowl who told me that 49ers scout, and this is just one of the 49ers scouts, so this doesn't reflect what the entire org is thinking, but I'm gonna just tell you guys. The two guys that he's been studying the most in Mobile, Iowa State Darian Porter and Ole Miss Trey Amos. Amos, like I said, has been so impressive that he's now leaving. And clearly has been told or has gotten the hint that a team is going to be taking him high, probably. So that's my scoop of the day. Do with that what you will. I do think the 49ers looking to get another corner. Yes. And there's a couple of guys here that are pretty solid. Like I said, they also met with Jacob Parrish, Kansas State corner from the American team, Upton Stout from the American team, Western Kentucky corner. Also someone who's been impressive here at the Senior Bowl and has been consistent. So I think it makes sense. There's some interest from the 49ers with corners. I think, like I said, you need someone else to pair with Bernardo Green and with Lenore. So I think they go for an outside guy. Eugene Asante, high energy guy today in practice. He's linebacker out of Auburn. I really liked him. I think I tweeted about him. He forced a fumble in today's practice. He was definitely going after the ball. I just love the energy that he was playing with, especially today. Demetrius Knight, South Carolina, another guy. Wayne keeps telling me like Kaiser's a dog out of Notre Dame. So he's been noticing him. And yeah, so there's some good linebackers, especially on the American team that I think have stood out. And as far as the defensive line, like I said, the interior is everything. Deion Walker, Walter Nolan. Like I said, Nolan did miss a good portion of today's practice. Not sure what he was dealing with. Again, I didn't get to talk to him in the media day, so otherwise I would have probably asked him what that was about, but maybe someone else. I'll have to check Twitter. TJ Sanders out of South Carolina, Cameron Jackson, also a dog, just consistently. He's a disruptor. He gets in the backfield quite a bit as well. Shamar Stewart, who has pieced out as well, Texas A&M. He's had a hell of a week out here. He's been dominant. Like I said, RJ Oben is someone who has stood out to me because I noticed him in day one because his hands were so damn fast. Like it was during drills that I noticed him. And I noticed that his hand movements were just so much faster than everyone else's, and it just looked natural, right? And then he made a couple plays in practice. Then today, he's still making plays. He had this one move. I forgot who he was going up against, and I don't think I got it on video, but he had this one move where he swiped. He had the swipe on the offensive lineman, and he got through him. Quick win. So he's been impressive to me. Notre Dame edge, RJ Oben, and like I said, I got to interview him today, and I got some great stuff from him. That was almost a 5-minute interview. So again, after this, please check that out. Would really love it. I did not ask him if he met with the Niners, but what did I forgot what. No, that was Olu Oladejo that I asked about KJ Wright. But I got some good stuff from Open. I do really like him, and just how he plays. So just someone to keep in the back of the mind. And I'll get into his tape after the Senior Bowl as well, because now I'm curious. All right. That is all for day 2, and I spoke for an hour. That's incredible. But yeah, no wonder I got thirsty a couple times here. Oh no, Johnny Dell, who's out here as well. His Wi-Fi sucks, I guess. Where's he staying? I don't even know where he's staying at. But I'll tell him. Tisha says, I love Darian Porter. At least that 49er scout does too. And Leonardo says, blocking is big on Kyle's offense. It's everything. You better know how to block. That's as far as checking boxes for any player, that pretty much has to be one of the top boxes, if it isn't the top. But anyway, yeah, I've spoken for quite a bit now. Make sure you like this video. Appreciate all of you guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Turn those notifications on so you know when I go live. Tomorrow, not sure what time I'm going to be going live. Probably will be later in the evening or afternoon. I know I'm on a different time zone right now, but just be on the lookout because it will be kind of random. So make sure to turn those notifications on. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you guys check out some of those interviews that I'm going to be posting in the next hour or so. Just some of the interviews that I had at Media Day today. Appreciate all of you. For now, have a good rest of your Wednesday, folks. Peace.